Right now, a change of venue being called for a father of the alleged Appalache High School gunman. We're going to bring in a legal expert to examine the move and discuss why it's being called for. Also, we're going to tell you why you need to be extra aware when you're driving on the Metro Atlanta Highway this weekend. And how do you eat your chocolate chocolate eggs or chocolate bunny rabbits? And we'll find out how the economy may impact how you're celebrating Easter this year. This is The Take. Let's get it. Hello and welcome. I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take. This is where we go above and beyond the headlines and we look at the why and how stories are impacting you and your community. We bring in the experts. We get their take on today's top stories, and also they share some insight. We also try to have a little bit of fun as well. Let's get started this morning with what we understand about yesterday's deadly shooting at Florida State campus in Tallahassee. We're told that the suspect got out of an orange Hummer and opened fire near the student union. 2 people were killed, 6 were injured. None of the victims' identities have been released, but authorities said the two that died were not FSU students. The suspect, a 20-year-old son of a sheriff's deputy, classes today on that campus have been canceled. We also know that 10th graders from Drew Charter School right here in Atlanta were on campus during a field trip when the shooting happened. The school says the students and the chaperones are all accounted for and back here in Atlanta. The students were hoping to get a glimpse of college life. Instead, they were hiding inside of campus cafeteria for hours while the police responded to the shooting. Students said the experience left them shaken and frustrated after what happened, and they were suspecting a positive experience.
Obviously, I'm extremely grateful, but behind that, the most triggering thing is the anger. We, as students, came to Florida State to think about a reality that we would have, like something beautiful that we could make ourselves, and instead we were given what the lawmakers gave us.
Thursday's tragedy was the second shooting on that university campus in just over 10 years. In November of 2014, a former student opened fire near the main library, shooting 3 and paralyzing 1 of them. Now we're on to another court case involving another campus shooting. The father of the accused gunman in last September's violence at Appalache High School will now have a jury outside of Bartow County to decide his fate. Lawyers for Colin Gray have argued of moving the trial outside of Bartow County due to intense media coverage and community sentiment. Gray is accused of providing the weapon used in his son, Colt Gray, in the shooting that left 2 students and 2 teachers dead. He faces 29 charges, including involuntary manslaughter and reckless conduct. The judge overseeing the case did not decide where the trial will be held, but plans to reach out to other jurisdictions before issuing a formal ruling. All right, here to discuss more on this case and yesterday's big ruling is former Fulton County Assistant DA and current defense attorney Darrell Cohen. Darrell, welcome back to the show.
Thanks. Nice to be here, and good morning.
Good morning to you. All right. It seems like a bit of a compromise, right? Not leaving Bartow County, but bringing in a jury outside of the county. Break that down for us.
Well, there's nothing simple about it. What the world says, what our justice system says, is we want a fair and impartial trial. That's not true from the side of the defense or from the prosecution. You take the two and put them together, and you have a fair and impartial trial. So the defense lawyers do not want the people who are in the county, near the school, have friends in the school, someone who may have been killed, to be part of that jury pool. So you want to be able to reach out to others who do not have the same familiarity with the case that the locals have. That's really what it's about. Reality, everybody in the United States knowledgeable about that case. That's reality.
Yeah. You know, is calling for a change of venue a very popular move by the defense team?
It's happened. It happened in the hot car death, Cobb County. It's happened several times. And not necessarily what they want, but it gives them something to appeal if they're not given a change of venue. So the judge at this point is walking a fine line. I want to do the right thing. I want to make sure it's a fair and impartial trial. But I also want to make sure that it doesn't cost the county enormous amounts of money, which it does when you have to move a case from one jurisdiction to the other. You have to take virtually the entire prosecution team. You have to house them, you have to feed them, all sorts of things that are different from when you have home cooking.
Wow. How does the prosecutors, how do they counter this?
they can counter it any number of ways. One, they say there is no place on earth, and certainly not in Georgia, where you would get any more of a fair and impartial trial. They will also say that the vast amount of publicity permeated the entire state of Georgia, and you're not going to get a juror any less fair or any more fair if we move the jurisdiction. And it's the right thing to do to keep it here. Also, they may at some point want to take the jury to the scene at the high school. And if that be the case, if you move it to Savannah or Brunswick, it becomes impossible.
Now, you mentioned the jury being moved to another county. You have to pay for that. Bringing them in, is it any cheaper? I mean, or do you still have to pay for that jury as well?
You certainly have to pay for them, but logistically it's easier because, again, as I mentioned, if you want to take them to the scene of the crimes, then it's easier to do that when it's in the same county. But it's certainly a little bit less expensive because you feed and house the jurors as opposed to the entire prosecution staff. And of course, the defense has to be housed and fed as well.
You mentioned that all of America probably knows about this case. How hard is it going to be to find people who are impartial, really? Or do you just say, well, you're outside of the county, we consider you impartial?
Well, certainly we're going to ask the jury and the voir dire, are you knowledgeable? Have you heard about it? Have you formed an opinion? I think people always try to tell the truth, but there are always people who want to be on that jury regardless. And so they will say the right things, even though they may have preformed an opinion absent any testing. It's not easy. It's a really tough. This is one of those cases that no matter what you do, you're right. No matter what you do, you're wrong. It's not going to be an easy case unless he decides to plead.
We should also note that the alleged gunman, Colt Gray, is also calling for a change of venue. How likely is that to happen for him?
I think there's a very good chance that could happen because the county is so polarized with what he did, and hopefully none of us have become numb to these horrible murders, and that's what they are. They're mass murders. There's a good chance that would be granted because he is facing life in prison, or if the DA's office wants the death penalty. So yeah, that's different.
Gotcha. All right, Darryl.
Same but different.
All right, gotcha. Darryl, really appreciate you joining us, and thanks for all that insight.
Nice to see you. Have a great day.
All right, take care. All right, folks, I know you got plans for the weekend, and your weekend forecast calls for temperatures to really start to warm up. Even today, Good Friday, we're looking at 84 degrees for the high temperature. We'll have partly sunny skies for much of the afternoon. Very nice day on tap. Low humidity around all weekend as well, as we see those temperatures get closer to the 90-degree mark on tomorrow. You're looking at 87 for the afternoon high. 85 on Easter Sunday, where we'll see clouds begin to push into the area. We'll call it a mix of sun and clouds. At times, you'll see a little sun, but the rain doesn't come back to us until we get to the beginning of the work week. So on Monday, we start with a 30% chance, 40% chance on Tuesday. We're going to remain unsettled for much of the week with very low threats for the rain to be around, but at least those temperatures will remain in the 80s as well. Don't go anywhere. We're back with more right after this. Welcome back to the show. More allies are coming to meet with President Trump in search of a deal in the weeks before sweeping tariffs begin on trading partners around the world. Joining us now is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr. And Alice, we've got less than 90 days until more of those tariffs will kick in from the White House on imported goods. Who are we hearing is in the lineup to talk with President Trump?
So the conservative prime minister of Italy was at the White House yesterday meeting with the president, and she is the first from the European Union to come meet with him since these tariffs were announced. He said that he fully expects that there will be trade deals reached, and he said he's not in a hurry, though, that he wants these to be, very good and fair deals. So there seem to be, positive signs out of that meeting. And then we also know that he's been meeting with representatives from Japan and has said that those meetings have gone very well. And again, he was asked, okay, so when are you going to start making some announcements, which we know the markets would probably respond well to. And that's where he said he's not in a hurry, that he wants to get these things right. But there are like 75 individual deals to cut and less than 90 days to do it. So the clock is ticking.
Okay. All right. Well, this comes as the president once again threatens the Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell, warning that tariffs could cause a recession. Talk to us about how this fuel has bubbled up.
Yeah, so he threatened Jerome Powell after Jerome Powell said that the tariffs could have a negative impact on the economy. And we heard from him on Wednesday, Chairman Powell, saying that tariffs would cause at least a short-term increase in inflation. And that's critical because the reason that President Trump has been speaking out against Chairman Powell is because he wants to see him lower interest rates. But the chairman was expressing that there's the kind of competing factors of, yes, there's been some signs of a slowdown in the economy, which would normally mean lower interest rates. However, the idea of tariffs forcing prices up, meaning potentially more inflation, that is something that you then want to potentially raise in interest rates to combat, or at least not cut them the way the president's been pressing for. And he said yesterday on social media, the president did, that Chairman Powell's termination can't come soon enough. And then he was asked about it yesterday, and he said that if he wants him gone, he'll be gone very quickly. Chairman Powell, his term is not up until next year, and he has said that he doesn't believe the president has the authority to fire him. Important to note, the Federal Reserve is set up to act independently so that there is not political pressure. It's a little bit of a murky area, though, what power the president does or does not have here. And in fact, there's a case that's expected at the Supreme Court to potentially resolve whether he could actually fire somebody like that.
Gotcha. All right, let's go back to this immigration battle. Federal courts rejected the Trump administration's effort to block an order directing to facilitate Kilmar Garcia's return. It's pretty harsh comments there. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, so this, again, we've been talking a lot about this case. The Maryland senator, U.S. senator from Maryland, was actually able to go and meet with Kilmar Abrego Garcia in El Salvador. He'd initially been rejected, but was able to. And, his family happy to see that he's alive, but he certainly is not getting out of there too quickly. If you take what the El Salvador president said, that now that he's been shown to be alive and healthy, that he can now remain in El Salvador's custody. Now, that goes against, or at least the Supreme Court had ordered that the Trump administration facilitate his release, and a federal appeals court again upheld that, saying that this is a Reagan-appointed judge who said that the government asserts Abrego Garcia is a terrorist and a member of MS-13, perhaps not, but either way, he is entitled to due process, upholding the Supreme Court there.
All right, Alice, thanks so much. Have a great holiday weekend.
You too.
All right, it's been another busy week in Georgia politics, and breaking it down for us, as usual, is our good friend, Zach Merchant, co-host of the Georgia Vote. Welcome back to the show, my friend. How you doing?
Hey, Chesley, always good to be with you. I feel like every Friday morning we get to kick off the weekend chatting to you about what's coming up on the Georgia Vote, and I feel like every week we say it has been a busy week, right? It's because it feels like every week is a busy week.
It is a busy week, right?
right?
Yeah, so what's coming up this week?
Well, the big story is the future of Governor Brian Kemp. He is the interview that so many folks are trying to get. We tracked him down. My co-anchor Faith Jesse sat one-on-one with Governor Brian Kemp. You'll get to hear his answers to those interview questions coming up this Sunday on the Georgia Vote. And the big question is what his future looks like. Faith asked him straight up if he is going to run for Senate or not. Hear his answer coming up this weekend. It's a question so many people want to hear the answer to.
Yeah, I want to hear the answer too. Why so much attention on Governor Kemp right now?
Well, really, I mean, Governor Kemp, he's in the headlines, but so is one other man, and that's Jon Ossoff, Georgia's Democratic U.S. Senator, and he is the reason, in many ways, so much attention is now on Governor Brian Kemp, because Senator Jon Ossoff, he is arguably the highest priority race for Republicans across the country to flip. We talked to one Republican strategist earlier this week. He said, yeah, there's a big red circle drawn around Senator Jon Ossoff's seat because national Republicans see that he is up for re-election in 2026, and they would very much like to put a Republican in place of Senator Ossoff. Democrats, of course, for their part, they very much want to keep Senator Ossoff in office. There were TV ads already on air this past weekend, which is really early. We're still more than 18 months out from this 2026 November election, but it's just a sign of how high priority this is. Senator Ossoff, he's announced he's raised about $11 million just in the first 3 months of this year. It's a high priority race, and Republican strategists, many of them, they see Governor Brian Kemp. They'd like to see him become Senator Kemp. They see him as the strongest contender to flip that seat. They're certainly asking him to jump into the race. So far, though, Governor Brian Kemp has been quiet on what his future plans are.
Wow, it must be big because it feels like the campaign season around here just never ends, Zach.
And it really, really does. I mean, we just got through the 2024 presidential election. You remember it, I remember it. It felt like every day there was a rally, a fundraiser, a major campaign stop. And look, if you're a Georgia voter, let's be real, it can be kind of tiring. It can be exhausting, and this just keeps happening, these high stakes moments. But it also means, and this is something that we've heard from regular voters that we talk to. You know, we've done this Voice of the Voter segment every edition of the Georgia Vote since we came on air nearly a year ago. In a high stakes, closely politically divided state, your vote really does make a difference. We've got a lot of statewide offices that are filled by Republicans in this state. Georgia has also sent 2 Democrats to the United States Senate. This is a closely divided state. The margins of victory in these elections are really close. And that means when you go and cast your ballot, it really does make a tangible difference, and your voice really can be heard.
Okay, yeah. All right, I also see that you're talking to a U.S. Congressman this week, too?
We are. We sure are. We spoke with U.S. Congressman Barry Loudermilk. We talked to him in his Cartersville district office earlier this week. He's representing the 13th Congressional District that's northwest of Atlanta. Congress is on recess right now, which means legislators, they are back in town. We asked him one big question in particular, and that is a big question around the country. Legislators, they are continuing to negotiate a potential budget deal, and the future of Medicare has become a topic of real focus for some lately. Some Democrats have argued that Republican legislators plan to cut funding to some Medicare programs. I asked Representative Loudermilk if he would ever vote to reduce access to Medicare or Medicaid programs. You can hear his answer this Sunday on the Georgia Vote.
Man, you got us covered, and I really appreciate that, man.
Always good to be with you, Chesley.
All right, Zach, have a great Easter weekend, all right?
Hey, you too.
Absolutely. All right, folks, you can always check out the Georgia Vote with Faith, Jesse, and Zach. It airs right here on 11Alive Plus, Sunday mornings at 11. Plenty more stories for you coming up. This is The Take on 11Alive Plus. All right, welcome back to the show. Next week is National Work Zone Safety Awareness Week, and GDOT is making sure you keep these folks in your sight while you're on the highway, okay? Here now with the latest is GDOT spokesperson and friend of the show, Natalie Dale. Welcome back. Good to see you.
So good to be back. Thanks for having me.
All right, talk to me about these road crews, right? All this physical labor that they do, the time it takes to get these projects done and get them accomplished. Talk to us about them.
Right. So next week we will be recognizing National Work Zone Safety Awareness Week. And in reality, it's something we should be acknowledging every week. Anytime you get on the road, you need to think about the workers that are out there, whether they are first responders, our hero units, a contractor, a construction worker. These men and women are right on the line of sometimes erratic, high-speed traffic to get their job done. You know, you and I have what we would consider to be a relatively safe office, but that's not necessarily the reality for a maintenance worker that's out there clearing a drain ahead of the storm. And so we see, because work zones move a lot, they shift a lot, they could be different from day to day. We see sometimes within the year high numbers of crashes in work zones and injuries in work zones, not just to our workers, but also to the motorists that drive through them. So we're just going to bring some extra recognition next week with all state DOTs around the country, safety enthusiasts, to make sure that people are really remembering the men and women that are out there on the road doing this hard work. Natalie,
you're so right, so right. But is it that do you think we see so many work zones that they've become a part of the fabric that we drive on? Why do we take them for granted?
I think we take a lot of things for granted. We look down at our phone. April is also, this is a great tie-in, April is also Distracted Driving Awareness Month. We see distracted driving a lot in construction zones. Sometimes we are on autopilot. Sometimes we make the choice to look down at that phone when we know we shouldn't. Sometimes we're going faster than the posted speed limit within the construction zone just because we're running late. There are a lot of things that we can do to cut down on these behaviors in construction zones. Slow down. Know that the construction zone that you drove through yesterday, it might change the next morning because we have shifting lanes, varying conditions. So I always say these are habits you should have on the road anyway. You should obey the speed limit. You should be attentive, but especially in work zones, just because they change often. And you have our crews, whether that's, again, a hero, first responder, right against the edge of traffic. And work zones can be big I-20, I-285, that's a big work zone.
Yeah.
But it can also be a small portion of a lane on a local street that's shut down for a pothole repair or something like that. So work zones come in all shapes and sizes. They change from day to day. It requires our utmost attention, our best driving to make sure that everyone gets home safely, our workers and the drivers.
Yeah, I understand this year's theme is respect the zone so we can all get home. What events do you have planned for the week ahead?
Well, we're asking everyone to wear their orange, their safety orange on Wednesday. I'm wearing mine today. I'll wash it. It'll be back on Wednesday. But tune into our social media channels. Again, this is something that's celebrated nationwide, so other states are doing things. There's some really compelling videos. We also, because April is Distracted Driving Awareness Month, have an incredible ad that's running on many stations, probably y'all's as well, through Georgia Broadcasting, about an individual who looked down at her phone for 1 second. It changed her life. That message is so important. If she could take back that second, she would. And so we're going to promote safety content next week, as we do every week. We're asking everyone to wear their orange on Wednesday and to really slow down in those construction zones. And if it's the first time you're thinking about it, don't make it be the last. These are very, very important things that we do when we get behind the wheel. So we hope you join us next week in recognition of our workers, those that drive through construction zones, to make sure that we're all staying safe.
I do have an orange tie. I will have it on Wednesday. I'm going to have to put a reminder in my phone. Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to help out because everything you said is true, Natalie, and we have to be aware of our friends that also work on the roads, and we have to be aware of our driving at all times so that we stay safe. Thank you for joining us every Friday and letting us know or be aware of what's happening on the roads.
Absolutely. Wouldn't have it any other way.
All right. Have a great weekend. All right, folks, back with my final take when we return. Don't go anywhere. How about some sunshine this weekend? You got it. Your wish is my command. Plenty of it, too. We'll have a few clouds around, but no rain coming out of those clouds. It's going to be a dry Easter weekend for us. 84 degrees for the high temperature today. We're looking at 87 on Saturday. If we reach one more degree, if we get up to 88, we'll tie our record. If to 89, we'll break it. Of course, the clouds will have something to say about that. I think a few more clouds will move in on Easter Sunday, so we're looking at a mix of sun and clouds. 85 will be the afternoon high. Going to stay dry. And then the rain comes back to us as we head into Monday. It doesn't look like a great chance. As you can see, 30% chance for now. That's going to linger into Tuesday morning, and then we'll get those little small chances for rain as we head into Wednesday and Thursday. Here's the good news, though. Even though our chance for rain goes up, look at the temperatures. For those of you who love the 80s, especially for this time of year, they're sticking around. 83 degrees for the high on Monday, Tuesday 81, back to 85 Wednesday and Thursday. All right, for my final tip today, you know, we're just days away from Easter, and if you're going to celebrate, the state of the economy may be impacting how you celebrate this year. According to a Wallet Hub survey, Americans have less extravagant, get it, extravagant plans. It shows 47% of Americans will skip dyeing eggs due to those expensive egg prices, except for my mother. She's going to dye every year. 41% of Americans say the Easter Bunny should skip candy and just give away cash kind gifts like the Tooth Fairy. One more fact for you. 77% of people surveyed admit that they eat the chocolate bunny ears first. What's up with that? The ears first? Why not the tail or the feet? I don't know. I don't mess with the eggs. I don't like the peeps. And I can't eat candy anymore. Can you tell? I'm getting bigger, folks. Hey, look, whatever you do, make sure you have a great Easter holiday. Enjoy the warm weather. We'll see you back here next week.